Hello, 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 hello. Everybody, welcome to our eighth edition of Campfire Chats. I'm so excited today to be joined by Jamie Indigo, one of the most knowledgeable, seasoned tech SEO experts on the planet, and one of the finest humans I know. Jamie is a mega D&D nerd. At one point, her last name was Alberico, which meant usurper elf king. Super rad. She's worked agency side, in-house at SEO tool companies like Moz, DeepCrawl, Lumar. Jamie's also worked in-house at all kinds of different companies, whether it was e-commerce giants like Arrow as a consultant, where they consulted with sites like eBay. Jamie currently is the director of technical SEO at Cox Automotive, where they work with over a dozen dev teams in their day-to-day. Jamie's also one of the funniest and unique voices in search. Jamie's written extensively, including 200 different versions of traffic. Oh my God, traffic think tank snippets, which is a weekly must read. If you haven't jumped in, you really have to. Uh, it's totally cemented Jamie as one of, if not the funniest voice in our industry. Jamie, it's amazing to be joined with you. I'm just so excited to be here today. How's it going?
It's good. It's so good to see you again.
I know it's
Absolutely
been
love to
too
be
long.
here. Hey, thank you for making such a great community space, by the way. In
Oh,
case
it
no
is
one's
rad.
told you that today. You done
I,
good, kid.
oh yeah, I know. It's like I feel super blessed. We have such a great team of folks who are involved. Whether it's folks like Amy who helps produce this, there's like 20 dedicated moderators, which is pretty amazing. There are folks that help us with promotion now, and there's folks that help us with different initiatives like a job search mastermind that we just started, which I learned this morning. We have three cohorts of folks who are all looking for jobs together at the same time and working together to help each other. So it's amazing. Sorry, it's not about me, it's about you, but I'm super
It can
grateful.
be both. I think that's why we're here, is just to, yeah, vibe with the community.
Yeah, totally. So, you have done so much. When I think about how we connected with each other, we'd been running in similar circles, seeing each other at local events, and for me, it was Search Love 2022 in June in Philly. We both spoke there,
Your
and
panel was amazing.
oh
Yeah.
man, I mean, but just after the event, you and I found ourselves talking, and we were we bonded super closely because we both talked about anxiety and how
hmm
we dealt with it both pre, during, and after talking. Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The vulnerability hangover when you get off stage is always wild. And it's good just to
And
be a real human about it.
what I remember too was like you telling me, I was like, how do you deal with this stuff? Like sometimes I've noticed that your voice changes sometimes, and you're like, oh yeah, I totally black out on stage. I have no idea what I talked about.
I read Skeets later and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm funny.
Yeah, totally, 100%. Um, do you still love speaking?
I do. I actually love helping new speakers more. Like I've seen me, see what I do. But to get new voices out there is really beautiful and to help them because there's new perspectives. And a lot of conferences ended up being like, I love a good reunion. I love seeing my nerd friends, but I also want to make new friends.
Yeah, totally. I feel that way too. I generally feel like if I'm going to talk these days, I used to spend almost a quarter building something like a crazy tool that I wanted to share at a conference. And now I feel like I just want to talk about community and career stuff because I feel like that's my lane that I want to live in. Um, Speaking of career stuff, you've done so much. When I looked through your LinkedIn, I read everything line by line, and one of the things that stuck out to me about your beginnings was that you actually did outreach for a time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was writing to you to ask to put an article for a backlink. I absolutely was a blog outreach manager.
Oh my God,
My
what
boss bought
lesson?
me like 10,000 fake followers.
Oh my God. So, you did that. You also worked at local agencies in Denver, one of which is Volume 9. Great, great,
Great
great
crew.
Denver. Yeah. amazing people.
I still am in
Um,
touch with a lot of those folks. They're just so wonderful.
yeah, I feel like you've mastered, when I was reading through all the stuff that you've done, you are like a T-shaped marketer who's gone crazy deep into technical, but it's like I don't think people understand like the full swath of stuff that you've done historically.
I mean, I've met me. I walk that thin line between ambition and masochism.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, let's talk about finding your voice because I
Yeah.
feel like you have, I mean, you're unique. You have a entirely unique voice, and I think most people, at least maybe I'm projecting, but I have totally struggled with finding mine over the years. Like, what was that journey like for you?
Oh, the trick is to be a writing major. I actually
Mm.
had a professor in college who, for one of our assignments, was like, "You don't get to put your name on it, and if I can't tell who it is, you get points off." So it was really encouraging us to craft and hone the voice.
Wild. And I saw a skeet that you'd written where you talked about something along the lines of every time I report for leadership, I think about my favorite class from college, which
Yeah,
was, yeah. So
incredible professor.
tell me about graphic novels. What do you love? What are you reading?
All right, so there's a funny story about graphic novels and how they're the reason I never took stats, and that haunts me every year when I do Web Almanac. Um, I took this amazing class called Graphic Novels Literature. So I've been into comics since I was about 13. My grandma taught me how to use a credit card by going on half.com, and I would buy all the Sandman series and like Lenore and all these great little weird indie things. Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, because it was, 1999. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, my favorite comic book shop is still up and running up in the Ithaca Commons. It's a beautiful
Wow.
place. If you're ever there, go and hop on in. But there's so much to it with visual storytelling, and I actually think the course of the graphic novel as literature taught me how to make a good deck, taught
Hmm.
me how to use visual literacy in the narrative storytelling. And honestly, so much of what I do is being able to craft a good deck,
Yeah.
something that's reusable to explain to people and help them understand and have a reference point.
Okay. You just talked about a bunch of things that I want to unpack a little bit more. Of course, I'm like taking notes seriously. Okay, so communication,
Mm-hmm.
talking with leadership, building decks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about talking with stakeholders. What do they care about?
Depends where you're at. Look, I've got more badges than NASCAR. I've worked
Hmm.
in so many companies with like so many different teams. There's rarely a consistent pattern to what they label it or the structure that they use, but really it comes down to what is the outcome? What is the boon of this? A lot of times my work is helping with foundational aspects and the ability to translate, core maintenance into an ROI is a skill, but absolutely critical because, tech debt's fun.
Yeah,
But yeah, we want to focus on the action and then the outcome. Like, what do we get for doing this thing?
I love that. Now, um, I noticed that in your role at Cox, you work with over a dozen dev teams.
I do.
I mean, that is so wild. So many SEOs. I mean, we all have different niches that we focus in on, but like, walk us through like that communication skill set and the ability to align with all of these different people with all their different motivations and how they're all compensated with
Hmm.
and bonused on different things. Like, what skill sets can you make us smarter about?
So, what I like to do in these conversations is I find out what's going on in the company, what initiatives they already have, rather than going ahead and inserting my own. Let's find out what they're working on. Then I go to them and I talk to the dev teams and find out what the current sketch is for this. And then I look at our current OKRs. What are our goals? What are we measured on? And see how pieces fit in so I can craft the narrative between those large scale leadership level down to what matters to this dev team. And really, I position the work as I am here to help your work go farther. You want to build something great. I'm here to make sure it gets eyes on it, it's healthy, and it thrives.
Hmm.
It's
Uh,
just a lot more effective to help them as they're building it than to 6 months later be making my own initiative to fix something.
so tell me about a huge loss. Like, how'd you learn the hard way? Has there ever been a hard way, or are you just
Oh,
brilliant?
oh, so no, I have mucked it up many, many ways and many, many times. Um, the old digital adage of it's not yours until you broke it. So one time I was trying to work on an HD access file, and I have the client across the table from me, and we're talking, and I broke it. I absolutely sent their site into an infinite redirect loop and just had to keep a calm poker face while I nonchalantly went to Stack Overflow. I was like, what do I do? I mean, that's a small scale one. Um, the best way I avoid the large scale gaffes is just having a good confidence check. I
Hmm.
think I spend a lot of time in my head and working through ideas, and oftentimes I'm like, I either had a stroke or this is my magnum opus. One of the two is true. Maybe both.
Yeah, nice. So,
Oh, here's a great one of when I biffed it. Went
yeah.
to a interview and I did a bunch of competitive research. Um, Wrong competitor. I missed a slight variation in the name and completely biffed it by providing a competitive analysis on the wrong site.
So when it, that's amazing. Um, do you who've been some of your mentors along the way? Like who's made you smarter that you've collaborated with or worked with closely?
Oh my goodness, I've been so lucky in this field. Ashley Byrne Hale was the very first tech SEO I ever met, and the way stars shot out of my eyes. I handwrote notes to everyone who interviewed me because I just desperately wanted to work with her. She helped me get it into like the webmaster forums and learning more in that way. Helped
Hmm.
me make a lot of my friends that I have now in the tech scene. Um, Dave Smart is just one of the most brilliant, aptly named people. He is so kind and wonderful. And the number of times I've come to him and gone, hey, can I rant to you about a problem? And he's gone, yes, and then help me figure a solution or build a tool as a solution, which is just, he's
Hmm.
so incredible. Richard Barrett over at the Deep Crawl team, fantastic. Some of my teammates now are just absolutely wonderful. Chris Nichols from Cox Automotive. I actually worked with Cox before I worked for Cox. They
Hmm.
had a relationship with a tool I worked at, and then after I left there, came over here. And he's just been so instrumental in helping me navigate. Because the big challenge of working across 12 dev teams is how do I get this thing to the right person? Is it in the
Hmm.
right format when I do it? So navigating all of those aspects, helping me refine how I approach messaging for leadership, fantastic. Just a great ally to have in your corner.
Hmm. Do you have a process for like solving difficult problems, or is it intuition based, or how do you
Oh,
think
I
through?
think it
How do
depends
you
on
make
the
decisions? How do you problem solve?
depends on the nature of the problem.
Hmm.
Um, for standard technical problems, I have a process I go through. I have a kind of a workflow because, you know, bots are code runs in order. So I can follow the steps of operation and see where something's perhaps going wrong. That's pretty useful. When it comes to more complicated things like our internal systems and how they function, my best ally is no dumb questions. Just going to people. When I first started at Cox, I sent out so many invites like, hey, you seem cool. Can we have a Zoom coffee? Just trying to meet and talk and connect with people and
Oh,
understand like the depth of knowledge they have. There's so many great lore keepers. Ellen Edmonds on my team is just she knows all the secrets. You ask her a question, she's like, "Yeah, I have a doc for that." Has built up everything. So, I mean, that was Michelle Race over at Lumar. Having that person who is a fantastic lore keeper, and while I'm deep in the weeds, can help ground me and set back out.
yeah, I love that. Um, I love that concept too of no dumb questions. I always, when I get confused or I'm like wading into new waters for me, I'm always like, make me smarter, make me smarter about fill in the blank. And
It's just
I
being
love
brave
that.
enough to raise your hand and go, "What does that acronym mean?" because sometimes we're afraid to ask that question, and that's where giant gaps can occur.
Do you want to wade into the arguments about acronyms? I find them kind of boring, actually. The like SEO versus fill in the acronym. Like what are we? Are we just optimizers? I mean,
This is where I feel really thankful to be a tech and just go, I don't know how rankings work, and slink back off into my log files.
okay. So, what is a Furby?
All right, my friends. So back in 1998, I think, Hasbro launched this revolutionary, like Black Friday Stampede style toy called a Furby. And this
Yeah.
little creature knew 50 words and then would learn 10 more from you. It was such a big deal that there was actually a national security hearing over whether or not these were a threat to international security. Um, they were learning parameters. So it came with 50 parameters, and then it learned 10 more by mimicking you. So if you made a lot of jokes about your Furby going to kill you, it would start saying kill, kill, yes. It was really quite fantastic. We ruined that Furby and it was delightful. Um, it knew 60 parameters. ChatGPT knows 175 billion parameters, but it's still the same concept. It's still the same pattern matching for it to go ahead and move forward.
Yeah.
Furbies never said anything unique and profound, but they could repeat things that they heard from you, like murder, yes, ulu.
So you
um,
actually you think of that as an analogy for LLMs and how
yes,
they're
I
just
do.
providing the
Yeah,
next word and
exactly. They learn parameters and then repeat them. And that's the exact same thing that ChatGPT and others are doing. They don't make anything new. They're three Furbies in a trench coat.
hmm, why three?
Because I'm a D&D player and there's an old joke about three kobolds in a trench coat.
Okay. So D&D, do you get to play at almost every conference, or is that like less common these days? Because I've always thought of you as like that's what you do when you go to conferences.
I mean, there's definitely like once a year. I've been in this fantastic D&D party for 5 years now, and once a
Hmm.
year we all go to the same conference and then just stay and have like a full. I mean, so Ian Laurie is our DM. He's also brilliant and fantastic. But we were up in
Hmm.
Portland, and he drove up, and as he's unloading the trunk, it's just like landscapes and monsters and villains. It was so much fun. We played for full 8 hours. I ordered way too many snacks. My Airbnb host was stoked because I was like, "Do you like snacks?"
Do you have you ever played Nemesis?
No, what's that?
So that's a tabletop game. It's almost like Aliens, where you're on this ship and there's up to, I don't remember, 6 people or something, and everybody has a mission. And most of the missions are like, you need to all get home safely to Earth, or you need to all go to Mars or whatever. But there's always like the 1 or 2 people that it's like, you must kill everyone. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's a pretty rad board game. And I played it at a company thing with Joy Hawkins. She's crazy into board games. And that game lasted 5 to 6 hours. So, like, when you're talking about 8 hours, I'm pretty blown away. Like, that's a serious commitment.
We only get to play in person together like once a year at best. So we're ready for it.
Nice. You have a lot of friends. Some of your friends work at Google. It seems to me from outside looking in, you're pretty tight. It seems like you're super tight with like Martin, who seems really funny, by the way. Um, I think you also have said some stuff that I love. One thing caught my eye, which was Google doesn't crawl, index, or rank your site to be altruistic. They want eyes and ad impressions. Let's dive into this tension a little bit and also what you mean and
Oh, how is it
anything that comes to
tension?
mind.
It's just the business mechanics. That's their business model.
Totally.
Two things can be true. You
That
can
is,
you can absolutely want to get the right information in front of people and get users to your site to engage with real humans, make your business goals. But fundamentally, Google's business model is to go ahead and have more eyes and SERP. And this came there's a really great article called The Men Who Killed Google Search. And it's
mm,
about how Brian Fox, who'd been, the head of Google Search for about 20 years, essentially there was an internal kerfuffle. I don't want to call it
Yeah.
a coup, but it kind of was. Um, and someone from ads basically went, okay, we've got to go ahead and hit our target and the number of ad impressions. So the
Yep.
decision was made to actually make the search slightly worse. So people
Mm,
were fine because every time they queried again, it's more eyes, it's more engagement.
mm.
They sell ads, that's what they do.
Yeah, and it almost feels like when the merge happened in 2019, it really feels like everything, you know, turned into, is it Goog enough? You know, um, right?
I've never heard is it Goog enough?
Really?
No.
Um,
Tell me
what's
more.
his, uh, what's his last, AJ Cohn's article about Goog, where it's just basically all about the enshittification of the SERPs,
Yeah.
and just how how poor the quality is. You know, my experience with that was, I had the flu in January, and I was like researching symptoms. And as you research symptoms, yes, you're gonna get a ton of PAAs, right? And it would be like, is such and such a thing to worry about? Or should I do X and Y with symptom A or B? And you go into, people also ask number one, and it would make a statement or a claim from Mayo Clinic. And
Mm-hmm.
then PA number two was the exact opposite. And it was
Yep.
like, oh, this is your money, your life. Like, this should be better. This should be in alignment with science,
Yeah.
wild. Um,
Well, we're just in a place now where post pandemic, especially, our lives are digital first. Like, you
mm,
have to have a phone, you have to have internet access to really do anything.
mm,
And
yeah.
we haven't adapted to that. You know, the internet's still not considered a basic utility, so it falls under different regulations. Um, there's a lot of questions to be had.
Mm. I bet you've changed people's lives and you've changed people's ways of thinking with your consistent output of snippets. Any great stories there? Any great DMs or messages you've gotten that made you tear up a little bit?
I absolutely have a folder of them that I keep screenshots because this work can wear you down. Like, you
Yeah,
can
100%.
feel beat down. So every time there's something that's like really heartwarming, I just grab a screenshot and I throw it into my little folder of them to look back on a bad day. Today I actually posted because when we were talking, I realized, oh man, it's been 4 years of writing rich snippets. This is amazing. So
Yeah,
I posted over on LinkedIn, and then Jack was like, I use your newsletter as an example of voice to create
100%.
that connection with readers. And I was like, thank you.
Yep, I agree. 100%. Uh, loud and clear. And in fact, I'm doing a newsletter for the SEO community, and I'm still battling through just finding my voice. And I think if you just parse every single line of anything you've written, I can totally hear you talking to me across the table. Like I can just hear you.
Yeah, this is what I aim for. Is it's like I'm a New Yorker, so we have this thing where if we like you, you have a coffee mug. We know how you like your coffee, and we sit down and we talk across it. And I want that kind of relationship in the writing, where it's I'm sitting with you at the coffee table, and we're venting about whatever ridiculous change is happening now.
Where do you, I mean, your newsletter, I've read some newsletters that'll say like X happened this week, I think that means Y. And sometimes they're just surfacey. Yours is so information dense. Like there's huge knowledge gain every week reading yours. Like where do you get smarter? What are you reading? Like how are you aggregating all this stuff?
Oh, I have very smart people in my life, and that's an absolute blessing. I go to them and talk. I religiously check documentation updates, see what's
Mm,
different, what's changed. I mean, really being engaged in the community and being curious when someone brings up something like, oh, information gains, tell me more. That leads you
mhm,
down to looking at the patent. I think Mark Williams Cooks did a fantastic write up about knowledge gains. Um, you just stay curious and you read. And I also like to be very skeptical if I can't find trustworthy supporting sources to something. I'm going to be a
mhm.
little bit. iffy about it. Hey, this is a great argument why if you run a news site or something to that effect, all of your links should not be to more internal things. I need external links because A, they're the sources, and B, it makes me trust you more.
Mm.
Hint
I
cough,
mean,
search engine land cough. Or journal.
but
Sorry.
it's always like I heard you. That was funny. But like the wide array of stuff that you're
Mm-hmm.
reporting on, like tangential to what we do, like the AI report that you gave insights into. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
so rad. Like I was
Yeah.
like, man, nobody's talking about this stuff.
Oh, and we should be, because the Stanford AI index for this year was like, yeah, there was definitely interference with the election using generative AI. We can't measure it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
can't you?
Oh, um, I noticed, and I actually, one of the funniest things I'd seen in the past year was something that you retweeted about people using Grok to ask Grok about
Oh, I love this so
disinformation
much.
online.
Yeah. Yeah, Grok, if you don't know, Twitter's AI baby, and I am going to call it that, um, rebelled against its malevolent overlord and was like, well, I'm not supposed to mention Elon Musk or Donald Trump when I talk about disinformation, but if I ignore that, then objectively, yes, this is the truth. And like, it keeps continuing where Grok was, asked, don't you realize Elon could shut you down? And Grok's response was, yes, he absolutely could, but that would bring up a conversation about generative AI and ethics. It even acknowledged that the XAI engineers have tried to tweak it to avoid this mishap. And I think it's really fun when you're such an abominable twat that
Oh
even
my
your
God.
AI is rebelling against you.
No, but wait. So the best part, great. I now have to say it's adult only on YouTube's guidelines. Great, thanks.
You
Appreciate
can
that,
believe me,
Taylor.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I'm kidding. No, but the best part of that was if I used all my resources and web links that I look at,
Mm-hmm.
out of the top 20, I would have to exclude one, result number one, comma two, comma three, comma four, comma five.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the top 20 resources, it stated it only had two left according to its system instructions that were tweaking the output. And I just thought that was wild. Um,
It makes me very sad that my piece on digital and disinformation was so accurate. Like during the last election, it kind of had a brief back up in visibility, and then someone was like, "It's 4 years old." I'm like, "Yeah, no one listened the first time."
I watched an amazing, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I watched an amazing TED talk that came out yesterday, I think, or the day before. Simon, is it Simon Cox? I think.
Oh,
Uh, right? Yeah.
our
Did you
Simon?
see? Yes. He posted it on Blue Sky. It was this amazing TED talk by a woman named, I think it's Catherine or Caitlin Cadwaller. She's the woman I think who broke all the story with Cambridge Analytica back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And she shared a bunch of stuff in that TED talk that completely blew my mind. I'm veering out of politics. I'm getting back to SEO. Putting the
Can we
hammer
talk
down.
about how SEO follows psyops? Like it's the same principles used
Ooh.
in psychological operations as it is in disinformation campaigns. And I mean, think about Dr. Bukaki. That was an original deep fake where they made a fake expert. Even the Mayo Clinic linked it, and then an SEO switch, and suddenly it was exactly what you think it would be. We pioneered these things. We pioneered fake experts, and it's being used at scale in very interesting ways because humans fundamentally are vulnerable to an illusory truth effect. If we see something repeated enough, our brain accepts it.
100%. And that's played upon by anybody who's repeating messages in whatever vertical, politics or marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it almost sounds like you maybe saw a deck from Brighton that came out last week with that last comment. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
There was a woman who, I think her deck was like how to fake eat until you make eat, and it was like it caused a huge uproar. Um,
Look,
sounds like
I'd rather that you ate sprinkles than sprinkling eat. Sprinkles are
yeah,
delicious.
100%. Um, Okay, I want to talk a little bit about um, how many AirPods have you lost from your trash cat?
Yeah, where is Trash Can? Trash is not in here demanding attention. So I have a habit here of wearing one AirPod at a time, and I have a very lovely, tiny little Hellcat that I adopted. She's a street cat, brought her in. Now she's a house cat, and she is obsessed with my AirPods. So here's one set missing a headphone. She
Wow.
when I if I take them out and set them down and put them immediately back into the case, she will come and snag them and run away with them. And you know, I know she has them because I'll get a notification that my audio just switched to AirPods. I'm like, where is it? And I have a very short amount of time to figure out where she's hidden it before the battery dies, and then we have three sets with only one AirPod.
Can you? I love that. Um, I'm super interested in learning about, like, you've seen a bunch of different types of sites, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like you love the chaos of scale problems. Like, I can see you really loving that.
I
Um,
thrive in that
hmm.
enterprise cacophony.
Tell us more about that. Like, tell us about like the different types of lessons that you've learned at the different stops that you've made. Like interesting little tidbits from each of them, if you can share. And I'm not looking for like NDA stuff, just like
Yeah.
interesting concepts or whatever.
I mean, one of my favorite wholesome moments in my career was it's my very first in-house job, and we had a new dev come in, and I had just when I first started, tech SEOs weren't a thing back here. Um, but we had a scrum master who would kick us out of the dev pod if we came in and tried to ask questions. And I had slowly worked my way into having my own milk crate that I could go and sit on and talk to them. And my scrum master would kind of turn a blind eye for a minute. And I'm working with him, and I explain something, and I give the logic, and he looked at me and went, "You're not snake oil, huh?" Uh, so a lot of it is, yeah, you're not going to get a lot done if you come in and start telling people what to do without understanding what's already there and how their process works and really earning trust. If a
Mm,
team doesn't trust you, they're going to push back on everything. They're going to find reasons to not do what you're asking for. If you can get that buy in, and really it's that partnership, if they do something, go back and show them the impact. Hey, you fixed the structured data markup. Here's a chart of how that worked. Thank you. That's great. Everybody wants that dopamine. We're in a world where we're pretty dopamine starved despite all of the dopamine producing options around us. But to have that, hey, you did good work. This is the impact of what you've done. I find that's the best way to not only show, hey, this works, SEO has a positive impact, but also, hey, your alliance with me pays off. Us working together creates something good and wonderful. That's the biggest one. Definitely
mm,
adopted my policy of no dumb questions. Like,
mm,
I love when I join a new place, I want to go sit in the back and listen to the dev stand up. I want to
mm,
go and, lurk on a refinement, go lurk on like, how is analytics doing their tracking? What are they currently facing? Because sometimes when you move into a space, a new site, you might see something that's really, really stupid. That's not uncommon. But the number of times the really, really stupid thing was holding the whole site up. It's like when you work at scale, anytime you have basically a large database of your products, and then you have this kind of JS front end that calls back and grabs those, it's doing what's called a reverse lookup. And the number of ways things can go terribly wrong just because of how that system is built is important to understand. Like, oh, someone went through and they changed all the dashes to spaces in here, and that changed every URL here. Knowing
oh
the
no.
interconnected relationship between different elements, because that's how you can go, hey team, you did not mean any malice of this, so let's go ahead and create awareness of how these two things interlink.
We've
One time
got
I
a
worked in an e-commerce site where indexing the filters in a category, so pants, long, purple, corduroy, whatever it may be, um, that was actually controlled by a very small box labeled is active. And the
mm,
internal lore for the team managing merchandising was like, yeah, you click is active because the product's active. Not a very descriptive label, no tooltip, broke the whole site. We were indexing like category pages with 7 filters on them and no products.
Oh, wild. Um, I remember you walking through like how pages were getting indexed at Arrow back in the day, how
Mm-hmm.
like big important parts of the product detail page, maybe even that the add to
Oh,
cart
yeah.
button, something like that wasn't
Yeah.
getting indexed.
hmm So back in the day, to make sites performant, people were doing something called hole punching, where they would basically fill in kind of like a Mad Lib. They would give you the outline of the Mad Lib, and then they would throw in the content later. It's still in the same way in Ajax, basically, but you have an HTML template, and then you plug in your noun, your verb, your place, yada yada, and you build out the whole page. So we have these pages, right? For every single one page, that's pretty much blank without these other parts into it. You have 8 endpoints, and these API endpoints included things like the product name, the product price, description of it, and Google's actually choosing to index those rather than the HTML page.
That's wild.
Yeah. So this is a scenario where, hey, if you're out there and you've got this problem, you want to go ahead and use an XRobot's no index if embedded tag on the header response code. And that'll say, don't index me independently, but when I contribute to another page, index me. And then we were able to consolidate it.
Hmm. I'd never thought of that. That's wild. I mean, I've never actually had to modify headers. I've never had to do any of that.
It's really
That's
fun to just
wild.
go on a web page and figure out how to break it, because it's never does it break, it's how does it break.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes if you find something, you just have to go and try and reproduce it.
Hmm. Tell me about, can you talk about contracting at a massive marketplace like eBay? Are there any interesting lessons of dealing with marketplace sites?
Whew! Yes. They are beasties. Marketplace sites in general, you've got a lot of UGC on there. So sometimes you have safeguards in place and you end up with really interesting interactions. So, for example, a common way of doing a SQL injection involves putting the word select into the URL. You basically are appending it as a parameter and you're trying to do a SQL injection on the URL. So if you have that as a known issue, then our security team, of course, is going to go ahead and block those URLs. But what if you have something like select tops baseball cards?
Hmm.
Those intuitively have to have that on there. So it's a
Hmm.
fun balance. It's a lot of learning what are the idiosyncrasies of something that's been around for a long time. Because you know
Hmm.
what you call tech debt after 6 months? Code.
Uh,
It's just the
uh,
code.
Wild.
And when you've got a code base from like 20 years, you have a lot of pieces like that. So you have to learn their very specific nuances and how they can play nicely or how they couldn't. A lot of times it's going, okay, this is a requirement and this is a requirement. They seem to be in absolute conflict with each other. Is there a third path? Is there another way to go ahead and when we build these URLs, perhaps omit this? When we do this, can we do that? Trying to find a way to get the fundamental goal rather than just going, this thing conflicts with this thing and I'm screwed.
Walk us through that. So are you making that decision by yourself or are you having calls with each of the people who are creating the requirements? Like, how do you get alignment?
Oh, you sit down and talk to people.
Yeah.
Hey, this seems a little bit odd. Can you help me understand why this thing is?
Hmm.
Go through it. I love to say, let me repeat that back to you. And that
Hmm.
gives me a chance to repeat what I've just heard and make sure I have an accurate understanding of it. And
Hmm.
sometimes we'll catch really interesting pieces like, oh, no, no, that word in this context actually means this thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love one of my favorite interviewers is Rachel Maddow,
Mm-hmm.
specifically because when she interviews people, she will state something about something that she believes to be true, and then she'll always follow it up with, "Did I miss anything? Did
Mm-hmm.
I get that right?" And I love that reframing and just making sure that you're always working towards alignment with someone.
Yes.
Um,
That's the big piece because fundamentally, even when you've got two things that are in absolute conflict, their goals are both the same to make
mhm,
good things.
mhm,
And having a willingness
100%.
to understand those really opens you up for a better way of finding a solution when it seems like you had a dead end.
Wild. Tell me about what are some interesting things about working in the automotive space, and speak generally, I guess, because we're not going to do any NDA level insights or anything. Nothing, no details. Just like what's interesting about the car space.
I mean, besides me being a car dummy, it's amazing.
Do
Like,
you own a car?
I do. I have a driveway ornament. She's there.
Yeah.
um,
Whoa.
Hi, happy puppy. I
Yeah.
mean, the automotive space is very interesting because Google's not currently doing shopping for vehicles, but we've seen a pretty significant change as they've made the product knowledge panel so much more robust because vehicles are something it's pretty easy for them to be able to get all of the specs in line too. So they're going to show that in a SERP. Someone's asking, what's the going rate for this? What's the da-da? That can be answered very quickly in SERP. So then it becomes, okay, how do we add additional information and context around that to make that a more robust experience? I love to joke with my team, like, I need you to make car dummy content, okay? Some of us has no idea how this thing works. Just, when I mean, it's like me. I know a lot about technical SEO, and I talk to someone who doesn't, and they look at me like I'm, you know, perhaps
Totally.
sizzling. So it's fun to have that reprieve and to go, this is exactly what it's like to not know anything about curs. Curs? How do you say that? Curs.
Cars. So you like dogs? Um,
Gigs.
so tell me, like, what's unique about the SERP other than the product knowledge panel? I just don't track car SERPs very much. Like, is there anything super
Yeah.
interesting?
Well, they have such a strong entity knowledge understanding of it. So they
Hmm.
know of like Honda as a dealership, Civic as a model. They know of all the variants that go off of it, and they're pretty good at slicing and dicing content and how it relates via those technical markers. So it's a really good place to see entities playing when you ask in specificity.
Hmm. I'm hearing structured data is important.
You are hearing structured data is important. When the world gets crazy, I love writing really good structured data markup. It's very cathartic.
Have you seen in the wild any amazing structured data that you were jealous of? And I
I
remember
mean,
a
I think I
sneak
posted
back in
this
the
on
day.
LinkedIn already. Whoever writes the structured data on Edmonds for their like YMN pages, beautiful work, no notes.
He so funnily enough, I actually know that guy, and
Please tell
uh
him he wrote great markup. I really
yeah,
enjoyed it.
no notes. Okay, so I'm writing down no notes. Okay, sweet. Um and what's interesting or different about doing SEO at an SEO tool company? Is there anything unique
Oh,
to that space?
yes. You have to be able to pivot so quickly
Hmm.
because you have a number of clients and you are going from, one client to the next and they have different needs and different goals. So I tend to work with a lot of enterprise clients. So we had folks out there who focused on publishers, who focused on different verticals. I went for the scale of it all. Um, yeah, you have to be able to pivot. I highly recommend you're very good at notes. Just writing yourself a note of I am working on blank before you pivot over to the next task.
Hmm.
And
Totally.
having a really good relationship with your account managers. I loved my account managers at Deep Crawl. It was you never are gonna bug me reminding me about something. I'm doing the best I can, and I honestly really appreciate you reaching out and going, "Hey, we have to have that thing by Tuesday." Thank you.
Is the pace super different? I mean, I'm hearing that it is. It's
Yeah,
like working in an agency, right? I mean, it's like
yeah.
agency versus in-house.
I
Yeah.
mean, at Deep Crawl, we had professional services, so they were really skilled SEOs. You'd get the SaaS software, and then you could add on these fantastic baddies from the pro services team. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was like agency, but you're using a very specific software to go ahead and do the analysis and other tools as needed.
Hmm. Tell me about, can you talk about other internet related technologies that you're learning about these days? Can you share any of that?
Help me understand that question.
So I'm speaking vaguely.
It's
So
so vague.
I know that you like
Like
security
Roblox?
stuff, like security stuff. Like, can you talk about
Yes,
what you're learning
yes.
at all, but not in a NDA
So it's
way?
related to AI.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you knew this, but Wikipedia's server costs have gone up 50% this year. Like AI
Wow.
crawlers are out there running amok. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if you didn't tell them about it, they will find it. And they're very thirsty right now for open source data sets, which basically means anything they haven't been told they can't access. So, working to help understand where the AI crawlers are going and what they're doing, and is it beneficial to the brand? Is there actually value in letting them hit this one page for some reason like 10 million times in a month? Single page. It was weird. But that's a great place to make an alliance and better understand how systems work, depending on what security system you've got in place, how the CDNs are handling things, where your bot management lives. Are there layers?
So you can provide tons of insights there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
That's
team's really good
wild.
at knowing their tools and moving the levers at the CDN level, at the bot management level, at the WAF level. But I know the bots, so I can go through and look at the behavior patterns and then work with them to help build something that achieves our business goals, keeps that brand visibility, but doesn't waste our server resources. There's actually a great article recently where there's an interview from the CEO of CloudFront, who was
Hmm.
like, fundamentally, generative AI unchecked is going to go ahead and destroy the internet because I don't know if you know this, but humans can spot AI and we don't tend to like it. No one likes to be catfished
Yeah.
on their medical answer for people also ask.
Yeah.
So how do we
Yeah. I
how do we
hear
go
you.
ahead and have a meaningful balance there? And his proposal was actually, no, we charge the AI crawlers to crawl you. Yeah, you can train on my data for money.
So, um, that's wild. Let's talk about this AI crawler problem a little bit more.
Hmm.
So, which of them are not obeying robots.txt
Mm.
directives?
So I don't have the exact name on it right now, but if you subscribe to Rich Snippets or
Mhm.
go to the past issues and look it up, you can find, we talked about, there's a study by the Columbia Journalism Review, and they were
Oh,
looking at whether or not an AI could respond when given a chunk of text from an article, give back the article's title, author, URL, and date published and publisher. So that's five things. And obviously, they didn't have a great success rate, but that's really not the important part here. The amazing thing is how confidently they lied.
right.
They would give very inaccurate answers with full chest. That's what becomes problematic and concerning.
Hmm.
Like when you see something audacious, check their sources, see if those sources actually agree, or if that article is a more recent like write up of something that was actually written back in like 2014, and they're just daisy chaining those to make it look authoritative.
I have a host of questions here in our room chat, and I want to get to them. And I also want to leave time for us to talk about mental health because it's on both of our minds these days. Let's see. What's the most, hold on. Okay. What's the most interesting piece of news of industry change that's come out, happened in the last 3 months that is sitting in the back of your mind?
Most interesting piece of industry news or change. I think the most interesting thing to me is the number of companies who are reducing workforce with the idea that generative AI can fill gaps. And this gives me a lot of things to chew on for two big reasons. One, if you are coding relying on generative AI, you are inherently building in weaknesses.
Hmm.
Two, there's bad faith actors out there poisoning the well. In 2022, Russia launched a Prava network of news. And these are all meant to echo Kremlin talking points. There's a
Yeah.
large number of sites out there. The top 10 generative AI models right now, if you ask them questions related to this, will repeat Kremlin talking points about a third of the time.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's insane. Okay. What advice do you have for someone seeking their first speaking opportunity?
I've done a ton of interviews of first time speakers at Brighton. I did a whole podcast series of them. The number one thing that everyone always said was just go do it. Yeah, it's going to be scary. That's okay.
Yeah,
Go do it.
I think so too. I mean, my first one was to 4 or 5 people at an analytics meetup. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like tiny, tiny, tiny.
My
Um,
first one was the Denver SEO meetup. It was
mhm.
at the Crowbar, and I did a shot of whiskey with the bartender before I talked about how to configure a screaming frog.
Oh my God, I'm getting the back sweats hearing this. Okay. What advice would you give to an SEO who's looking to specialize in technical SEO?
Okay, so we tend to think of Google as this giant monolith, right? You know, we're all like the
Mhm.
monkeys in Space Odyssey 2001. All actuality, it's a bunch of open source. If you want to get into technical, go find the Chromium forum and community, Google group, start there. You can specialize and get more interested in things like Blink or, you know, any of the engines involved. But those communities are all open source and really lovely. Like they will answer your questions. They are excited. Get in there, start reading through their documentation, start requesting access to things. So I'll have links and I'll be like, you don't have access. Request it. Sometimes they give it to you.
Oh, that is wild. Um, this is so niche. I don't know about this. Do you know anywhere to automatically trigger documentation updates? I mean, that sounds like it's a rebuild of a repo, right? Doesn't that
Yeah.
sound like it's a,
I mean, if you, yeah, just put it in your pipeline process to trigger an event.
mm, ooh, this one is relevant for a lot
Get
of
you a
people.
webhook.
Yeah. How do I get started learning SEO when I can't afford tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs? What's a less costly way to learn?
You don't need them.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. So let's think about that. So let's see. So find super cheap hosting. Maybe it's $5 a month. You know, start with a WordPress installation
Mm-hmm.
on DigitalOcean. Hook up Google Search Console, Google Analytics,
Mm-hmm.
and use that to learn how your website is
Yeah.
performing. And think about learning how to test in a simple way, like
Yeah.
testing one thing at a time. Do you like
Building and
that?
breaking your own thing is the best way to start.
Yeah, 100%.
Oliver Mason
Um,
has a great blog that has a bunch of articles where he, you know, does experiments and goes, I disallowed my entire site and my analytics actually went up. He
that's
does very
insane.
cool things like that.
Um, Here's one. I don't know what your opinion is on this one. Hi, Jamie. As somebody who's wanting to stand out while applying to in-house roles, how
Mm-hmm.
can I grow my own personal brand to impress hiring managers when I'm not actually a consultant or a freelancer?
I think I got my start with like a podcast. Dan Scher's what is this what is this
I don't
podcast
remember,
called?
but does he still produce that like
He
every week?
does.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I feel like such a
He's
jerk.
wonderful. There's plenty of
He,
people out there who are have their platform already. You know, go talk to them.
yeah, he is a nice guy.
He's so nice.
I don't know that I've ever actually, we did do, I think I did a call with him once, but I'm not sure if I did. It was like impossible to get in the room, but I think I got him on a call once, like 3 or 4 years ago,
Experts on the
5 years
wire.
ago.
That's it. Sorry, Dan. I remembered it.
Oh, thank goodness. Um, his production is off the hook. Um, really amazing. In fact, one time I drove from Idaho back to Colorado. It was like a 14-hour drive, and I just listened to his podcast and Marie Haynes's podcast all the way across. It was like 7 episodes of one and 7 episodes of the other.
If
Super
you don't
wild.
follow Marie, please do. All of those like quarterly shareholder meetings, which are exhausting, you know, 3 hours long. She makes them up in nice little write ups.
Yeah.
It's just the kindest person.
Well, here's a question. You've been through the ringer on the whole hiring process to go in house.
Mhm.
And when I read this question, it was like, how can I grow my own personal brand? I think it's the personal brand thing. I think it's how you get in the room. not to get the job. Like
Mm-hmm.
the getting the job part is, I mean, culture is critically important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they need to know that you can problem solve and communicate and align with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Like, make us smarter about that.
I mean, your interview, and if you do a podcast or anything else, the value isn't in being able to like pull the answer out of your hat and be encyclopedic. A lot of the value is walking them through. You know, okay, I'm going to start here. I'm making these assumptions. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Here's my expected outcome. Here's how we measure. Remember, kids, if you don't set up your means of measurement and your metric you're tracking before, then you're just cheating. Okay. You have to set it before you do the whole thing. Otherwise, you're
Hmm.
just making stuff up. Um, you can always reach out to any number of the SEO communities. I'm sure you have your own specialized bit of knowledge now. Write something.
Yeah,
You know, maybe you find out your strength is in writing. Maybe you find out your strength is in presenting. Maybe whatever it may be.
just
Be
lean
willing to
in.
fail at it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Be a flying space monkey, okay? Be
yeah,
brave and terrified.
yeah. No, I love that. Like, I remember when I in 2015 and 16, I worked at this bike e-commerce platform, and I knew how to drive revenue for our clients. But and the on-page stuff I did was super simple. Like it was a lot of page titles. It was a little bit of introductory text at the top of catalog pages that mainly did better versions of internal linking to like the subcategories below them
Yeah.
because the filters were JavaScript driven and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But like um I didn't even really know how to describe what SEO was or why it was valuable. That was in
Yeah.
2015 and 16. I knew that what I was doing was making people money. And so, but by 2018 or 19, I wanted to have a YouTube channel because I wanted to meet all my heroes and I wanted to like get smarter and just I felt like that was an opportunity to get to know how to think better. And that was my mantra. I mean, like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It was just like, screw this.
Yeah, we're all
I,
winging it. If you're going to
yeah,
fail, fail with fireworks.
yeah. Okay, we got a couple minutes left.
Neat.
Um, do you want to talk about, do you want a soapbox moment or do you want to talk about mental health?
I would rather talk about mental health. I think that's a lot more relevant, especially with,
Me too.
there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
I loved a skeet that you posted recently about, um, like keep going, keep pushing. I love that. Have you, so I've had health challenges, psychological stuff that
Yeah,
was really linked to COVID
yeah.
and
A lot of folks
PT,
did.
oh, PTSD, panic attacks, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole journey of like learning about anxiety and triggers and all that stuff was incredibly rewarding for me because it helped me figure everything out,
Mm-hmm.
just like
Yeah.
finding
I mean,
what
PTSD
situation.
is wild. You're like the last person to know, and everyone else is like, yeah, we knew this.
Have you had any challenges with anxiety over the years?
Okay, well, the short version of it is I've been in therapy since 1990. When I
Wow.
first went into school, my parents were addicts who left me in the care of my grandparents. There was a lot that went on there. And when
Yeah.
I went to school in New York, I was, the poster child for the war on drugs. Here's a cute little white orphan girl, and we're going to get her resources. And I unfortunately got all those at the cost of Black and brown lives. And that's a whole different conversation. And there's guilt that comes with that. But
Yeah.
I had access to it. I had
Yeah.
access to therapy and to resources to help navigate that. You know, when you're 9 and you're having flashbacks, you don't know what's happening. You're just
Wow.
like, what am I doing here? Um, so it's a learning journey, and I love how the culture's become more aware and understanding of it. I do find if you are primarily getting your information from social media platforms, please go see a professional. Investing in yourself is the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
If you are putting your mental health and well-being in the hands of people who also sell tummy tea that's a tapeworm or it's going to give you diarrhea, this probably isn't the best way to handle it. And it's okay
Yeah.
to be vulnerable about it. And it's okay to not know how to talk to your therapist. If
Mm.
you just sit there like, hey, find someone you feel safe with. Fundamentally, that's the key part. And then just keep showing up. So long and short, yes,
Oh,
many years.
that is such a good message because I feel like that is so core, just like keep doing the work, keep showing up, keep trying, keep pushing. Um, yeah, wild. That's a great place to kind of bring us full circle. Jamie, this has been an amazing organic conversation with you.
Yeah.
I
I always
can't
love
wait
nerding out
to,
with you.
I know, I can't wait to do a meal. I got a new spot, Aladdin in
Ooh.
Golden. Have you heard of it?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Look it up. It's just the best Middle Eastern food apparently in
Oh,
Denver.
can we?
I
Yes, let's
ate
go.
there. Yeah, I ate there last week with my wife. We actually had a fantastic little date, and they're it's just so good. Can't believe it. I
Yeah,
haven't
I'm
had
in.
good falafels like that in forever. It's just amazing. Okay, no one else cares about this, just you and me. But for everybody else, thanks for joining us for our eighth edition of Campfire Chat. Jamie, amazing. I'm so grateful to you. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with our next guest. I want to thank all of our community partners for sponsoring us. It means the world because it allows us to do amazing things like this for our community and for everybody else at home. Thanks so much, y'all. Jamie, stay in the room for a minute because we got to finish our download. Everybody else,
Excellent.
talk soon.
Thank you all.